Hey there, so hated characters, every fandom has one, and at one point we all hated one of these characters, and a lot of the times they absolutely deserved it. Or do they? Sometimes a fandom can't move on from a character that did a horrible thing, even if they were developed. And today I want to check some of the MLP characters that, while developed and even funny sometimes, the MLP fandom never forgot about, and to finally see if they deserve the hate that they get. Let's begin with not one but two characters that I feel everyone hates for seemingly no reason. Trixie and Starlight. Now look, I'm not gonna pretend these two started as saints, because they didn't. They were selfish, egotistical, and at times their motivations for being antagonists were kind of dumb. Like Starlight slaving a whole town and stealing their cutie marks just because she got friend-zoned. Or Trixie being mad at the main six for ruining her life, despite the fact that she told a bunch of lies that in consequence put Ponyville in danger.
Are you fucking dumb?
So yes, they absolutely gave fans reasons to hate them, but are we forgetting that they had reformations that actually improved them as characters? Like Starlight had 4 seasons worth of reformation. She went from an awkward, antisocial, and egotistical pony to being a more social and understanding pony with others, and she even made some new friends of her own, and that's just neat. Or what about Trixie, someone that had 2 reformation stories, both being completely different from each other. As in, one she tries to prove to the main six that she isn't the same pony that she was back in season 1, and also learning to be less boastful and egotistical, with a lot of bumps along the way. Rarity! Or in the show, where she learned to be more caring and less self-centered. These 2 reformations were great because of how they improved them as characters, and sure, you can still dislike them because they were horrible ponies. But I get surprised when fans say that Starlight and Trixie didn't have good reformation stories, because that's just not true, and I bet if Trixie and Starlight didn't come back to the show, fans would want to explore them even further. But these 2 aren't the only ones, because we also have... Now, I need to ask, who honestly hates Sunburst? Sunburst in the show is a pretty likable character. Sure, he didn't have the best introduction, and you can argue that he was kind of annoying in his early episodes, but aside of those pretty minor things, his portrayal across the show was funny, so why is he in this video? Well, it's because of shippers. Yeah, for some reason, some Starlight and Trixie shippers hate Sunburst because he intervenes with their ships. Which, sure, you can have your ships, but not if it means a character is going to be hated just because it doesn't go with your ideal ship. And let's be honest, we all know that Sunburst, Trixie, and Starlight are in a polyamorous relationship, right? But if you think this one is weird, well, that's nothing compared to... Alright, so this one is a personal one. I used to hate Potion Nova, mainly because she was a Mary Sue. She was perfect, everybody liked her, and that made her a character hard to enjoy and relate to. Or at least, that's what I thought. Because looking back, Potion Nova not only was a very funny and likable character, but also a very awesome concept. Potion Nova being a unicorn that supplies every wacky and silly potion to our main characters was something that reminded me of earlier seasons with Avalon learning how to make potions. So why she was so hated? Well, I think it had less to do with Potion Nova and more to do with how pony life was and how it's seen in the fandom. But if you put all the dumb, chaotic, and somewhat bad start the show had, pony life and Potion Nova don't deserve the same hate that they get. Same thing goes to Spike. Now, Spike is probably the easiest character to understand why he was so hated, especially if you grew up watching the early seasons. Back then, Spike wasn't the greatest character. He was annoying, selfish, and extremely self-centered, and unlike Rarity, where yeah, she could be selfish and self-centered, and sometimes that could come off as annoying, at least she knew she wasn't in the right, something that Spike didn't realize until much later in the show. So yeah, I get why some people would hate Spike, but at the same time, he did get better. He did develop over time, and while that didn't fix some of his episodes, it wasn't really his fault. And I think that's what makes Spike such an interesting character, as yes, he still is a hated character, depending on who you talk to. But the one that, at least in the first 3 seasons of the show, it felt that the writers didn't know what to do with him, but the one that at least found its footing once he became Starlight's friend, which is not the same thing that I could say for our next character. Why do people hate Flurry Heart? No, seriously, this has been a question that I've been asking since season 6. Now, don't get me wrong, Flurry never was my favorite character, and I get why someone would hate her at first glance. She is the stereotypical baby archetype that was made to sell toys.
Brother,
and even in the show she didn't do much, and a lot of her episodes could be described as character takes care of her, she does something magical, and hijinks ensue. That and the fact that she was a natural born alicorn, something that at the time was thought to be earned, yet here comes this baby that was born with it. I get it, but at the same time, she didn't do anything that insulting, she was just there. Yeah, it's frustrating that we never got to see her true potential or story, but I wouldn't hate her. And that's what a lot of fans did. Now, yes, while some of them are quite funny and very creative, others are just the phrase, she's just a baby so she's annoying. And this honestly gets pretty annoying, as aside of that, can you tell me something else to hate about Flurry Heart? You probably can't. And this also goes to Sparky, as these two are basically the same character. Both were baby characters that were used as either comedic effect or as the cute character, or to sell toys, which would be the same thing honestly. But also were saved by the fandom, because yes, while fans hate their canon versions, fans absolutely love their fandom versions, and with good reasons. Fans have developed these two more than the showrunners ever did. Fanfics that explore her relationship and responsibilities as a princess, and fanfics and fanarts that solidified Sparky as a funny and sometimes awesome character in the fandom, which all things considered was a big win. Unlike our final characters. I think it's no surprise that the Young Six are in this video, arguably one of the most hated and divisive groups maybe in the entirety of MLP. Since their first episode, this group has been divided. In the beginning, a lot of people hated every single one of them. Yes, even Yona. And the only one that was somewhat saved was Ocellus. But then, halfway down the season, people began to like Yona and Sandbart. But then, they became hated, and people began to like Smolder. But then, the show ended and fans began to like Gallus. What I'm trying to say is that the Young Six have been inconsistent characters since their inception, ones that fans one way or another have hated every single one of them. But why is that? Well, I don't think people hate them because of who they are, but rather because of the season itself. When season 8 came out, the MLP community was at its most divided, as you had the older fans clashing with the new ones, and no, not like what happened with G5. I mean, there were fans that believed that Derpy could always talk, that Lyra and Bonbon were always a canon ship, and fans that believed that the main six were always wacky characters. That clashing with the more analytical fans that grew up watching the show, the ones that saw all of the cursed and chaotic starts of the G4 fandom, it was a shit show. And sparked this famous saying, the Young Six ruined MLP. But is that really true? Well, no. No, it isn't. And in my opinion, Season 8 isn't even the worst season in MLP. Yeah, it's the most different one, and yes, some of the episodes are absolute garbage, but aside of that, it's also one of the most misunderstood seasons. As aside of Sounds of Silence, there's a surprising amount of enjoyable episodes, and this also goes to the Young Six. We saw this group develop in the expand of the season in a pretty believable way. We saw them socialize their differences and their struggles, and we saw them rose from a bunch of outsiders to becoming part of the Elements of Harmony. And yeah, a lot of their stories and development were spread out all over the place, from the show, to the comics, and even the Game Love game, which might sound messy and annoying. But are we forgetting that that's how the main six were? Remember when to get information you had to go to the comics, game, website, or even magazines to get some of the nichest information known by any fan? But one that was the fun of LMP ever since G3. And while the Young Six nowadays have become more beloved, we cannot deny that to get there wasn't a battle. But this is probably just me, so what are your thoughts on these characters, and do you believe they deserve the hate that they get? Leave it down in the comments. And hey, if you made it this far, it's because you enjoyed my nerdy rambling, so why not give me a like, a sub, and check out the Discord server, where we get to some interesting things. Why? Why me? As for me, remember, stay safe, stay creative, and I'll see you in the next video.